Those very people who once lacked even a single drop of water to survive, who fought against dust and sand and wandered like nomads. How did those primitive humans, in a span of just a few centuries, give birth to one of the most spectacular civilizations in history? Coming from the Sahara Desert, how did they tame the terrifying floods of the Nile River and turn themselves into the world's first and most powerful rulers, the pharaohs?
Yet despite such immense power and boundless wealth, one constant fear haunted them. That fear was death. And to cheat this very death, they invented the terrifying science of mummification. Many believe that they built the pyramids of Giza simply to hide those mummies. But the question remains, why has no mummy ever been found there? If it wasn't a burial site, what was the real purpose behind building these massive pyramids?
These pyramids, constructed from millions of stones, baffle scientists to this day. Without iron, without wheels, and without machines, how did these people ultimately erect such heavy stones? And the greatest mystery of all, recently, when scientists sent a modern robot into the dark, hidden shafts of the pyramid, what did they see behind the sealed door that shocked the entire scientific world? Today, we will embark on a thrilling journey to uncover the deep history of the Egyptian. Egyptian civilization, one you have probably never seen like this before. To begin, we must travel back to the Sahara Desert in 11,000 BCE, because that is exactly where this history started. Around 8,000 years ago, humans had learned to sow seeds. In parts of the world, people had begun living in small settlements. However, across a massive portion of our planet, nature was playing a terrifying game. The vast expanse of North Africa, which we today call the world's driest and most deadly desert, the Sahara, was not always like this.
Scientists call this era the African Humid Period. From approximately 11,000 BCE to 5,000 BCE, spanning a full 6,000 years, the Sahara was an entirely different world. There were miles upon miles of green savanna forests and massive lakes. Many tribes of nomadic hunters lived there, surviving in harmony with nature.
We have found evidence of this in a place called Nabta Playa. Today, it is a barren desert in southern Egypt, but in 7,000 BCE, a lake existed here, and on its shores, humans constructed a massive stone circle that tracked the movements of the sun.
This is the world's oldest stone calendar, proving that the people of the Sahara were advanced.
But then, the wind changed its course. According to scientists, around 5,500 BCE, a very slight shift occurred in the Earth's axis, a tilt of just a few degrees. But that tiny shift permanently pushed the monsoon winds away from Africa. Before long, that green world began to scorch.
Centuries-old lakes dried up into mud. Scorching sand replaced the trees. The nomadic tribes were left with no choice. Driven by thirst and fear, these scattered tribes from the western deserts and eastern barren lands began moving in the same direction, accompanied by their children and surviving livestock.
They walked for miles across the scorching sand in search of a place where they could find just a single drop of water. During this deadly migration, the weak perished and were buried in the sand. But for those who survived this terrifying journey, their eyes finally witnessed a miraculous sight on the horizon, one that would alter the entire course of human history.
Cutting right through the middle of the burning golden desert, from north to south, ran a massive, calm, blue ribbon of water. A river that seemed to have no end. The Nile.
When those exhausted nomadic hunters touched that cold water, they felt their journey had ended. They thought they had merely found water to drink,
They had no idea that on the very banks where they rested, their future generations would erect massive pyramids that would mystify human brains thousands of years later. But a massive question remained.
Those nomadic people had only known how to hunt to fill their bellies, possessed neither advanced technology nor wealth. How did those very people transform into a civilization capable of building skyscraping pyramids? When the Nile overflowed every year and submerged everything, how did these people tame this uncontrollable water to begin agriculture? The nomads' thirst was quenched.
Initially, the hunters viewed this as a divine wrath. Terrified they would flee to the high mountains to save their lives. But when the water receded after a few weeks, it left behind not destruction, but a miraculous gift that forced those nomadic people to settle permanently on this land.
After the floodwaters receded, miles of land along the riverbanks were coated with an extremely dark, wet soil. This was the world's most fertile silt, washed down from the mountains of Ethiopia. The people of these tribes noticed a magical phenomenon.
Whenever wild seeds, especially wheat and barley, fell onto this black soil, fresh, golden sprouts would shoot up within a few days. Like a bolt of lightning, an idea struck the minds of humans who had spent thousands of years chasing animals.
They thought, if we intentionally plant these seeds in this black soil, will we never have to die of starvation again? And just like that, humans sowed their very first seeds of wheat and barley into the soil of the Nile.
However, there was a major problem. The floodwaters would recede back into the river, and within a few days, the wet soil would dry up and become as hard as rock. If the soil dried out, the crops would burn to ash. Right here, these primitive humans utilized an ingenuity that turned them into the world's very first engineers.
They realized that merely sowing seeds was not enough. They had to retain the water right up to their fields. Using tools made of stone and wood, humans began digging the earth from the Nile to their fields, creating small canals. They built earthen dikes around their fields so that when the floods arrived, the water would fill these trenches and channels, remaining stored for weeks even after the main flood receded.
For the first time in history, humans had taken control of nature's water. This agriculture changed human life forever. Once fields were irrigated and seeds were sown, humans could no longer leave the crops unattended to wander elsewhere. They had to guard them. It was here that the footsteps of ever-wandering primitive humans finally stopped.
The nomadic lifestyle came to an end, and the first permanent huts made of reeds and mud began to appear along the banks of the Nile. The hunter had now become a farmer. Alongside agriculture, they also began domesticating cattle, sheep, and goats. Within a few years, this irrigation system showed its true potential.
Before long, mountains of grain accumulated outside the huts. For the first time, humans produced several times more wheat and barley than their immediate nutritional needs required. To protect this surplus grain, deep pits dug into the earth and large mud granaries were constructed. This massive surplus of grain constituted the very first wealth in human history.
And when bellies are full and grain is secured for the future, population grows rapidly. What was just a small tribe of a few huts yesterday gradually merged with one another, transforming into massive villages and cities. These sprawling cities laid the very foundation of the Egyptian civilization.
But where there is wealth, conflict is born. As these small villages grew into massive cities, competition began for control over the most fertile lands, the grain storehouses, and the waters of the Nile. The question now arose, who would actually control these cities, fields, and thousands of people? How exactly did the Egyptian monarchy, known to the world as the pharaohs, come into existence.
Thanks to the magical soil of the Nile and irrigation technology, the smell of the grain that primitive humans had stored for years in their granaries was no longer confined to the villagers alone. This scent reached the terrifying and hungry tribes of the desert, who were still wandering from place to place in search of prey. And then began the first and most terrifying era of looting in human history.
Under the cover of dark nights, ferocious bandits armed with weapons began attacking these settlements. Grain was looted, huts were torched, and fear grew so intense that farmers realized growing crops was not enough. They also had to learn how to defend them.
Amidst this fear, the world's first rulers were born on the banks of the Nile. Soon, the foundations of the world's first and largest cities began to rise along the river. Great cities like Memphis, Thebes, and Abydos began scraping the sky. The strongest men in these cities, those capable of protecting the tribe from enemies, were the ones to whom the people handed over their grain and their freedom.
However, this entire Nile Valley was not yet a single, unified country. It was not a single country. In the beginning, Egypt was divided into two separate, powerful regions: the mountainous southern area, known as Upper Egypt, and the flat northern expanse, known as Lower Egypt.
Then, about 5,000 years ago, a mighty ruler emerged who changed everything: King Narmer. Using his immense power, King Narmer unified these two distinct kingdoms and established the world's very first undivided Egyptian empire.
To govern and control this vast multitude of people, these rulers drafted the world's earliest laws. The people of Egypt called this system Ma'at. The rulers successfully instilled a powerful psychological belief in the minds of the people that without the state's justice and system, the entire balance of the universe would collapse. It was a mastermind psychological strategy.
Once these rules were firmly established, taxes were introduced. Farmers were required to surrender a portion of their harvest to the king. But how could anyone keep track of thousands of tons of grain? To solve this, some exceptionally intelligent Egyptians invented something magical. By blending the imagery of birds, animals, and human forms, they created the world's first written language, which we know today as hieroglyphics.
But a critical question remains. How did the Egyptian Empire become the most powerful and wealthiest nation of the ancient world? The secret did not lie in their swords, but rather in what floated upon the waves of the Nile. By binding wood and a plant called papyrus together, the Egyptians built the largest and most advanced boats of their time. The Nile was no longer just a source of drinking water. It had transformed into the world's busiest trade route.
Egypt possessed massive treasures of wheat grown from its fertile soils, exceptionally soft, velvet-like linen cloth, and vast reserves of papyrus. They loaded these vessels with their goods, traveling to distant lands to trade. And what did they bring back in return? They imported highly precious cedar wood from the forests of Lebanon, shiny copper from the mountains of Sinai, and most valuable of all, metric tons of gold from the formidable southern deserts of Nubia. This booming commerce filled Egypt with boundless wealth.
However, they held a deeply rooted religious belief that compelled them to preserve the body of their king for thousands of years. It was this very belief that later laid the foundation for one of the greatest wonders of the world, the Pyramids of Giza.
These pharaohs of Egypt had consolidated absolute control over the realm's wealth, the military, and the Nile itself. While still alive, they went as far as claiming to be creators themselves. They possessed everything a human being could possibly dream of. Yet there was one terrifying truth that no pharaoh could ever escape: death.
The king knew very well that when he grew old, fell ill, and drew his final breath, the common people would witness that their ruler died just like any regular person. Once that happened, the psychological fear would vanish from the hearts of the people,
And with its disappearance, this massive empire and political power would be snatched away from his future generations forever.
Right here, the rulers of Egypt played the greatest and most terrifying mind game in human history with the collective human psyche. They weaponized Egyptian religion and human faith as their greatest tools. The rulers declared that when an ordinary person dies, they return to the earth forever. But when a pharaoh closes his eyes, he does not truly die.
He merely leaves his earthly vessel to journey to the heavens to meet his father, the sun god, whom they called Ra, so he can continue to illuminate the entire world from above. The rulers instilled a deep dread in the minds of the populace. If the pharaoh's body was not securely preserved after death, if it was simply buried in the sand like a commoner and allowed to rot, his soul would never reach the stars.
And if the king's soul found no peace, the sun god would become enraged. The Nile would dry up, and all of Egypt would face absolute destruction. Fearing this catastrophe, the citizens served the king happily and without opposition. They sweated day and night for the ruler without expecting any personal gain, because they genuinely believed they weren't slaving for a man, but rather saving their world from total annihilation.
But merely creating a mummy was not enough. Their bodies had to be placed far away from ordinary graves, inside an impenetrable vault that neither man, beast, nor time itself could ever destroy. It was from this very necessity that the concept of the pyramids was born. But how true was that initial concept? During the construction of the earliest pyramids, a major structural mistake occurred, one that ultimately taught Egyptian engineers how a real pyramid should actually be built. To protect the royal corpses from decomposition and music, wild beasts, these early kings initially began digging deep subterranean tombs beneath the earth.
Here is the English translation of the next part of the narrative, detailing the evolution of engineering from the mastabas to the Great Pyramid of Giza. The evolution of the pyramid, from mud to stone. To protect those subterranean graves, they constructed flat, rectangular, four-cornered platforms made of mud bricks over them. The people of Egypt called these platforms mastabas. However, these mastabas were not permanent structures. Over time, fierce desert winds and sandstorms eroded these mud platforms. An even greater threat came from grave robbers. Ferocious bandits could easily break through these mud bricks, enter the tombs, and plunder the king's gold and his mummy.
The pharaohs realized they needed a stone structure that even time itself could not erase. It was at this moment in history that the first genius engineer made his entry, Imhotep. Designing a tomb for the Egyptian king Djoser, Imhotep rejected mud and chose stone instead. He placed a second rectangular mastaba on top of the first, then a third, and stacked 6 heavy platforms one after another in this manner. When the dust cleared, all of Egypt stood in awe. This was the world's very first pyramid, the Step Pyramid. For the first time, ordinary humans had erected an artificial mountain of their own on the earth. Trial, error, and mathematical failure. But humans are never easily satisfied. Decades later, when Pharaoh King Sneferu ruled over the entire Egyptian empire, he decided he did not want a stepped structure. He wanted a pyramid with completely smooth, sloping sides.
Under his command, engineers enthusiastically began stacking heavy stones at a steep, sharp angle of 54 degrees. But right here, these people, who had transitioned from primitive humans into engineers, made a catastrophic mathematical error. The weight of the stones increased so drastically and uncontrollably that the pyramid began to shift and buckle from within. As a result, the angle had to be abruptly changed halfway through construction, leaving the pyramid looking warped. This came to be known as the Bent Pyramid. It stood as the first major engineering failure in human history. Yet,
King Sneferu refused to accept defeat. The Egyptian engineers learned from their mistake and applied entirely new, precise mathematics.
After years of shedding blood and sweat, a new structure arose, built from red limestone. It had no steps or unnatural bends. It was the first completely perfect and successful smooth-sided pyramid in human history, the Red Pyramid. The impossible challenge of the Great Pyramid. As time marched on and Pharaoh Khufu ascended the throne, an idea of an incredibly massive monument took root in his mind. How did the engineers of Egypt ultimately erect the world's greatest wonder, the Great Pyramid of Giza, without iron, without wheels, and without any modern machinery? The moment Pharaoh Khufu took the throne of Egypt, he resolved that his pyramid would be vaster than any pyramid ever built before. Such a heavy pyramid demanded an incredibly solid foundation. Therefore, his engineers chose the rocky plateau of Giza on the west bank of the Nile. This specific location was selected because the Egyptians believed that the mysterious world of the dead began where the sun sets. The foundation laid on this plain of Giza was of a magnitude far beyond human imagination. The Great Pyramid stood 481 feet tall, equivalent to a modern-day 50-story building. To construct it, they needed not 100 or 1,000, but 2.3 million massive blocks of stone. For the engineering capabilities of that era, this was a seemingly impossible challenge. Think about it. Those people had no iron tools, nor had the wheel been widely adapted for transport. How did this miracle happen without modern machinery? To build the internal core of the pyramid, yellow limestone was quarried right from the Giza Plateau. However, to make the pyramid's exterior gleam brilliantly like a mirror, they needed white limestone, which was only found in the quarries of Tura on the opposite side of the Nile. Furthermore, to construct the king's chamber inside the monument, they required incredibly hard red granite stone.
Here is the English translation of the final part of the script, maintaining the descriptive narrative, historical terminology, and structural formatting. The capital, which was located in the city of Aswan, a staggering 800 kilometers from Giza. But how were these stones weighing 50 tons each transported across 800 kilometers to Giza? To achieve this, the Egyptian engineers harnessed nature's greatest power, the annual flooding of the Nile. When the river was at its highest crest, these immense blocks were loaded onto massive vessels crafted from sturdy cedar wood and sailed directly to the very edge of the Giza Plateau.
From there, the true battle of sweat and blood for the laborers began. Millions of workers placed these heavy stones onto wooden sledges. To minimize friction against the harsh desert sand, water was continuously poured directly in front of the sledges, so the stones could slide smoothly. Subsequently, using human strength alone, they hauled these stones up massive ramps constructed of earth and mud bricks toward the pyramid site. Yet, the most staggering aspect was not the weight of these stones, but the pyramid's sheer geometry and precision.
Without a compass or modern machinery, 2.3 million stones were aligned to face true north with absolute perfection. The leveling of its foundation was so flawless that the variance between its four corners was less than an inch. The joints between the stones were so microscopic that even a modern razor blade cannot be inserted between them today. This stood as the greatest mathematical miracle of the Egyptian engineers' minds.
After decades of grueling labor, when this great pyramid of 2.3 million stones was finally complete and the pharaoh passed away, his body was mummified and entombed alongside boundless treasures within the most secretive, dark chamber of the pyramid. From the outside, this mountain of stone was sealed forever with heavy blocks. If that is indeed the case, the question arises once more. If they were truly buried inside their pyramids, why were their mummified bodies never found?
Pharaoh Khufu had fully secured his afterlife. But did Khufu's grand master plan actually succeed? When explorers broke through the impenetrable doors of the Great Pyramid thousands of years later, what did they discover inside that pitch-black king's chamber? The Great Pyramid of Giza was completely sealed from the outside. Inside this impenetrable mountain of 2.3 million stones lay total darkness and a terrifying silence.
Had you stepped inside the pyramid during that era, you would have faced a literal labyrinth. Extremely narrow, steeply sloping secret passages were constructed to lead inside. To deceive grave robbers, numerous decoy doors and lethal booby traps were laid out. At the very heart of this labyrinth, constructed from heavy granite blocks, was the King's Chamber. This was where the pharaoh's body was meant to be protected for eternity. However, stone walls alone could not prevent a corpse from decaying. To counter this, the priests of Egypt transformed the king's body into a mummy. So, what exactly was a mummy?
Upon the king's death, his brain was evacuated first, followed by all the internal organs of the abdomen, because these are the first to decompose. Only the heart was left inside the body, driven by their belief that the human soul and intellect resided within the heart. Following this, the empty cavity was packed and the body was dried in a special salt, natron, for up to 40 days to eliminate all bodily moisture. Finally, after being coated in cedar oils and resins, it was wrapped tightly in thousands of meters of linen bandages. The king was now a mummy.
This mummy was then placed inside a nested series of multiple golden coffins. The burial chamber was filled from floor to ceiling with boundless gold, precious gemstones, chariots, weapons, and treasures whose modern valuation remains impossible to calculate. The pharaoh genuinely believed that these treasures would serve him in the afterlife.
However, the kings made one critical error. To protect their treasures, they built structures as massive as mountains. But these very pyramids acted as giant signboards for grave robbers. By this time, the mummies were already torn apart and plundered throughout history. By the time the thousands of kilograms of gold stored within the Great Pyramid, along with nearly every other pyramid in Egypt, was thoroughly and ruthlessly looted during ancient times. When later pharaohs witnessed this widespread desecration, they were shaken to their core. They realized that pyramids were no longer safe. Consequently, they abandoned the practice of building pyramids altogether. Instead, they began concealing their tombs beneath the earth, tucked away in a highly secluded and secret valley surrounded by mountains. Among these hidden tombs was the resting place of a young Egyptian ruler. King Tutankhamun died at the tender age of just 19. Following his sudden demise, the priests hastily buried his mummy in a small tomb within this hidden valley, covering it with dirt and stone so its location would remain completely lost to the world.
For thousands of years, that tomb remained buried in total darkness. While the tombs of Egypt's greatest and most powerful pharaohs were systematically looted over the centuries, no one ever managed to reach Tutankhamun's hidden sepulchre.
Fast forward to the year 1922. A British archaeologist named had been excavating this valley for years. Everyone told him that nothing left remained to be discovered here. But one day, Carter's workmen uncovered a hidden step buried beneath the sand.
As Carter made a tiny breach in that 3,000-year-old sealed doorway, the people standing anxiously behind him in the dark passage whispered, "Can you see anything?"
The epic journey of human civilization did not end in Egypt. In another corner of the globe, deep within the heart of dense jungles, another formidable civilization arose that erected equally mysterious and advanced pyramids. If you wish to watch the full documentary on the massive pyramids and terrifying mysteries of the Maya civilization, you can click on the video appearing on your screen right now.